There are places in this world where the rules of science don't hold the way they should. Places where instruments behave strangely, where the ground beneath your feet seems to carry something that shouldn't be there. And where, the longer you look, the more you realize that what you're seeing on the surface is only a fraction of the problem. Skinwalker Ranch in northeastern Utah is one of those places. On June 2nd, in the third episode of Season 7, the team investigating this 512-acre property did something they had never done at this scale before. They didn't just observe. They didn't simply monitor from a distance. They committed, fully, simultaneously pushing downward into the earth and upward into the sky, deploying 100 drones at once while running a large-scale drilling operation into the Mesa. Think about that for a moment. 100 drones. Simultaneously. That is not a casual investigative step. That is a declaration. That is a team that has gathered enough data, enough signal, enough converging evidence to say, we are ready to act. And at the center of it all is something that has haunted this investigation for years. Something the team calls the bubble, an atmospheric anomaly so persistent, so structurally defined, and so resistant to explanation that it has become one of the ranch's defining mysteries. This episode is titled Setting Boundaries. By the time it ends, the word boundary will carry a weight you didn't expect. Because in this episode, for the first time, the bubble, the phenomenon that no one could fully define, starts to take shape. And shapes have edges. Edges imply design, and design implies intention. Something is down there. Something is up there. And in this episode, for the first time, those two somethings start to point at each other. The Mesa has always been different. Even among the many anomaly zones cataloged across the ranch, the elevated, flat-topped landmass sitting at the heart of the property has consistently produced readings that don't reconcile with standard geobiology. Ground-penetrating radar surveys, conducted across multiple seasons, have returned data that the team's scientific consultants couldn't dismiss. Layered signal returns, suggesting a density inconsistencies beneath the surface. Not rock, not sediment. Something with a different electromagnetic signature entirely. For years, the hypothesis sat in the background, a metallic object, a buried, possibly large, possibly placed with deliberate precision, at a depth that would make accidental discovery nearly impossible. The team returned to it season after season, scanning, measuring, modeling, but never drilling. Because drilling changes things. You cannot undrill a hole. You cannot unknow what you find. That restraint spoke to something important. These aren't people chasing headlines. When Travis Taylor, the ranch's lead scientist, and Brandon Fugel, the property's owner, discussed the possibility of drilling into the Mesa, they did so knowing the cost of being wrong. Financially, reputationally, scientifically, they waited until the evidence was too consistent to ignore any longer. By Season 7, it was. The readings that had been anomalous in Season 3 had not disappeared. They had intensified. New sensor arrays deployed across the Mesa's perimeter had begun tracking correlated signal fluctuations. Readings that suggested the subsurface object, if it existed, was not inert. It was interacting, in some measurable way, with the environment above it. That was the moment the conversation about drilling shifted from if to when. Season 7, Episode 3, was the when. There's a difference between investigating a property and excavating it. Investigation implies observation, standing at a distance, recording, measuring, theorizing. Excavation means commitment. It means you've moved past the point of watching and entered the territory of confronting. In Episode 3, the team crossed that line. The drilling operation deployed for this episode was not a small-bore test sample. This was large-scale equipment, industrial drilling machinery, brought onto a property that has a well-documented history of malfunctioning equipment at the worst possible moments. Batteries drain without explanation. Cameras freeze. Electronic systems that worked perfectly in testing fail mid-operation within the ranch's boundaries. The team knows this. They've experienced it repeatedly. And yet, they brought in heavy equipment anyway. They reinforced their monitoring arrays. They staged backup systems. They built redundancy into every layer of the operation because they understood that if something down there was capable of disrupting electronics at range, it would likely attempt to do so the moment they started drilling toward it. The psychological weight of that moment is difficult to overstate. Every person on that team carries the memory of previous seasons, moments where they were this close to a breakthrough only to have instruments fail, readings vanish, or phenomena disappear the moment they increased their investigative pressure. The ranch has a pattern. The closer you get, the more resistant it becomes. This time, they were not retreating. The operation represented a turning point, not just in Season 7, but in the entire investigation. A shift from scientific patience into something closer to scientific urgency. They were going in. Whatever was down there, they intended to find it. Parallel to the drilling operation, something equally unprecedented was happening in the air above the ranch. 100 drones, launched simultaneously, coordinated into a unified aerial formation, designed to map the sky above the mesa with a density of sensor coverage that no previous investigation had attempted. A single drone provides a single perspective, one thermal sensor, one electromagnetic detector, one point of reference in a three-dimensional space. But a swarm of 100 drones creates something fundamentally different. Overlapping sensor arrays, redundant data streams, a full aerial grid that captures not just individual readings, but relationships between readings, thermal gradients across distance, electromagnetic fluctuations relative to elevation, the geometry of invisible phenomena, rendered visible through coordinated data collection. What the team was building was a map, not of the land, but of the air above it. This matters because the bubble, the atmospheric anomaly that has defined so much of the ranch's mystery, does not behave like a fixed object. It shifts, it pulses, it appears and recedes in ways that have made precise characterization almost impossible with conventional observation methods. You can see it. You can measure it from one point. But until now, no one had captured its full three-dimensional structure in a single coordinated pass. The drone swarm changed that. From above, it was searching for the bubble's edges. From below, the drilling operation was searching for the source. Top down and bottom up. Two vectors of investigation converging on the same target from opposite directions. It was the most methodologically sophisticated approach the ranch team had ever executed, and it was happening simultaneously, in real time, with live data feeding back to the monitoring stations. Whatever the ranch was hiding, it was about to be approached from two directions at once. To understand why this episode matters, you need to understand what the bubble actually is, or rather, what it has resisted being. The phenomenon was first catalogued in the ranch's modern investigative era as an unusual concentration of atmospheric distortion, a region above and around the Mesa where air thermal, imaging, electromagnetic sensors, and optical instruments all registered deviations from baseline that couldn't be attributed to weather, temperature, inversions, or known geophysical activity. It appeared bounded, contained within a loosely defined spatial region, and it appeared to respond, not randomly, but in patterns that correlated with human activity on the ground below it. Over multiple seasons, the bubble was observed expanding and contracting. It was detected on radar. It produced thermal returns that didn't match the ambient temperature of the surrounding air. Equipment operating within or near its boundary registered signal fluctuations that disappeared the moment the equipment was moved outside of it. In at least two documented instances, physical objects, drones, experienced unexplained system failures upon entering the bubble's approximate zone. The scientific hypotheses ranged from the grounded to the extraordinary, a localized plasma phenomenon sustained by geological electromagnetic energy, a persistent ionized field generated by subsurface mineral activity, an interaction zone between underground electromagnetic emissions and atmospheric pressure differentials, and then, at the far edge of scientific credibility, but never fully dismissed, a propulsion or containment field associated with non-human technology. None of these hypotheses had ever been confirmed. None had been ruled out. What made the bubble so persistent as a mystery wasn't just that it was strange, it was that it was consistent. It kept returning. It kept producing the same category of anomaly in the same general location across years of observation. And that consistency, that refusal to disappear, is what finally justified the swarm. The data came back, and it changed something. When the drone swarm completed its coordinated mapping pass over the Mesa, the data streams were fed into the ranch's monitoring systems and processed alongside the ground-based sensor readings that had been running concurrently with the drilling operation. What emerged was not a theory, it was a measurement. For the first time in the investigation's history, the bubble had been mapped with enough spatial resolution to establish its boundaries with scientific specificity. Not an approximate zone, not a rough perimeter based on single-point observations, a defined three-dimensional boundary with measurable edges, measurable dimensions, and measurable behavior patterns consistent across the full swarm dataset. The team's reaction in the monitoring station was measured. These are scientists and investigators who have trained themselves not to leap. But the weight of what the data was showing was visible, because a bubble with definable edges is no longer just an anomaly. It is a structure, and structures, in science, require explanations. The swarm data answered the question of what the bubble looks like, with more precision than anything that had come before. But in doing so, it immediately deepened the question of why it looks that way. A phenomenon with consistent, repeatable, geometrically definable boundaries does not occur randomly. It does not appear and maintain itself through chance. Something is generating it. Something is sustaining it. And the drilling operation, happening simultaneously below, was converging on the one candidate source. Powerful enough to do exactly that. Setting boundaries. When this episode was given that title, it likely seemed straightforward, a reference to the investigation expanding its physical scope, establishing new operational parameters, defining the edges of a new investigation phase, and it is all of those things. But after watching what the swarm data revealed, the title carries a different weight entirely. The drilling operation crossed a boundary. Not just a geographical one, a psychological and scientific one. The team moved from a posture of cautious distance, maintained observation, into direct physical intervention. They pushed a drill into ground that had never been disturbed in the context of this investigation. They committed resources, equipment, and credibility to the idea that what's down there is real enough to go after directly. The drone swarm drew a boundary. A literal one. For the first time, the bubble has edges that can be measured and reproduced. It is no longer a formless, shifting suggestion of something unusual in the air. It has geometry. It occupies a definable space. And here is where the title becomes most interesting. Because when you set a boundary, when you define the edge of something, you simultaneously define what is inside it and what is outside it. The swarm told the team where the bubble ends, which means it also told them where it begins, which means that whatever is generating the bubble, whatever is creating and maintaining this persistent atmospheric structure, exists somewhere within those boundaries. The question is no longer whether something exists at Skinwalker Ranch. The question is what it is, how deep it goes, and what happens when you reach it. The drilling operation was not random. It was targeted. The team had a specific location based on years of subsurface scanning and electromagnetic triangulation, where the anomalous readings were strongest and most consistent, and the target was an object. Something with a density and electromagnetic signature that didn't match the surrounding geology. The two frameworks for understanding that object sit at opposite ends of a scientific spectrum. The first is geological, a natural formation. A dense metallic ore deposit, perhaps, or a deeply buried mineral concentration with unusual electromagnetic properties. In this framework, the object exists because geology placed it there. It generates anomalous readings, not because it was designed to, but because its physical composition happens to interact with the ranch's broader geological context in unusual ways. This would explain the electromagnetic signatures. It would partially explain the surface-level disturbances, but it would struggle to explain the bubble, because a passive geological deposit doesn't typically generate a structured, bounded atmospheric phenomenon with the behavioral consistency of what had been observed above the mesa. The second framework is more difficult. An artificial object, placed, not formed. Whether by a government program operating outside public knowledge, a private project conducted decades ago and long since abandoned, or, at the most extreme edge of the hypothesis, something with an origin that conventional institutional science isn't currently equipped to categorize. In this framework, the object was put there deliberately. Its electromagnetic output is functional, not incidental. And the bubble above it isn't an anomaly. It's a side effect. The drone swarm data did not conclusively resolve this question, but it complicated it. Because the structure of the bubble, now mapped with precision, has characteristics that are difficult to reconcile with a passive geological source. Something down there is doing something up there, intentionally or not. Step back from the immediate details of this episode for a moment. Look at the shape of the evidence. Across 6 seasons of documented investigation, Skinwalker Ranch has produced hundreds of anomalous events, unexplained aerial phenomena,
equipment failures,
physical effects on biological matter, radiation anomalies, underground readings that defy standard geological models, atmospheric distortions. Every one of these events, cataloged individually, can be challenged, debated, and theorized around. But when you look at them together, when you map them spatially across the property and chronologically across the seasons, a pattern emerges that is harder to dismiss. The anomalies are not random. They cluster. They correlate. The most intense surface-level events consistently occur in proximity to the mesa, the same location where the subsurface electromagnetic readings are strongest. The bubble appears above the zone that sits directly over the buried anomaly the drilling operation is now targeting. Aerial phenomena documented in multiple seasons have been visually observed descending toward or ascending from the same corridor of ranch airspace that the swarm just mapped. This episode places 2 data points in direct conversation with each other: the subsurface object and the atmospheric bubble. And the swarm data suggests they are not independent phenomena. They are related. They may be aspects of the same system, if that is true. Skinwalker Ranch is not a collection of random anomalies layered on top of each other by coincidence. It is a location where a single, deeply embedded phenomenon is expressing itself across multiple domains simultaneously. Underground, on the surface, and in the sky above it. That is a fundamentally different kind of mystery. And it requires a fundamentally different kind of investigation. Every major revelation in an investigation of this kind does something paradoxical. It answers a question, and in doing so, it generates 3 more. The bubble now has defined boundaries. That is the answer this episode provides. But the questions that answer creates are significant, and the team has not yet addressed all of them publicly. If the bubble has boundaries, if it is a geometrically consistent, spatially fixed phenomenon. What is maintaining those boundaries? Atmospheric phenomena of natural origin do not hold their geometry over extended time periods. Wind, pressure changes, and thermal variability should, in theory, distort or dissolve any atmospheric structure that isn't actively sustained by an underlying energy source. The bubble has not dissolved. It has persisted, which means something is continuously generating or reinforcing it. The drilling operation reached a certain depth in this episode, but the key question: did the drill make contact with the object? What happened at the moment of contact, or at the moment the drill approached the object's depth, remains incompletely answered. In the ranch's investigative history, the approach toward anomalous sources has repeatedly triggered responses. Equipment disruptions, signal spikes, atmospheric changes. Whether any of those responses occurred during the drilling operation is information the team is still processing or has chosen not to fully disclose. And perhaps, most importantly, the swarm data has now defined what's inside the bubble. But what that interior data actually shows, whether it differs from the exterior in ways that suggest an active energy field, a physical barrier, or something else entirely, is a dimension of the revelation this episode only begins to open. There are moments in long-running investigations when the pace of activity suddenly accelerates. When a team that has been methodically gathering baseline data shifts into a mode of active confrontation. Episode 3 of Season 7 feels like one of those moments. Deploying a 100-drone swarm and executing a large-scale drilling operation in the same episode is not standard investigative pacing. These are resource-intensive, logistically complex operations that require significant preparation and coordination. Running them simultaneously, on the same episode, targeting the same phenomena from opposite directions, suggests that the team arrives at Season 7 with a specific operational intention. A phase of investigations that was always going to be more aggressive, more direct, and more committed than what came before it. This raises a question that sits just outside the frame of what the show has explicitly addressed. Is the team operating on information that the cameras haven't captured? External consultants, private scientific partnerships, institutional involvement from agencies that prefer not to appear on cable television. The history of Skinwalker Ranching includes documented interactions with defense-related research programs. The property's current owner, Brandon Fugel, has connections across multiple industries that extend well beyond the visible scope of the show's production. The scale of this episode's operations feels, in some ways, like confirmation of something, like a team that knows more than it has shown, moving with a confidence that exceeds what the televised evidence alone would justify. Season 7 is not watching the ranch. Season 7 is confronting it, and the ranch, as it always has, is responding. We started this episode with a question embedded in a title: setting boundaries. It sounded procedural, administrative, like a team marking out a new research perimeter before another season of careful observation. It turned out to be something else entirely. The ground beneath the mesa is no longer an unsearched space. The drill has entered it. The investigation has physically crossed the surface boundary that separates the observable world from whatever exists beneath it. And whatever is down there is no longer simply a reading on a sensor array. It is something being approached directly by the people who have spent years trying to understand this place. The sky above the mesa is no longer an undefined space. The bubble has edges now. It has geometry. It occupies a specific, measurable volume of air above the most anomalous location on the most anomalous property in North America. That is no longer speculation. That is data. And here is the thing about boundaries, once you find them. They are not just lines of separation. They are thresholds. Step up to a boundary, and you learn where one thing ends. Step across it, and you learn what the other thing is. The team at Skinwalker Ranch has spent years finding the boundary. This episode is the moment they began stepping across it. What's on the other side is still unknown. What the bubble is protecting, generating, or marking is still undefined. What the object beneath the mesa actually is, natural, artificial, ancient, recent, remains unanswered. But the shape of the mystery is no longer invisible. It has edges, and something that has edges can, eventually, be understood. Whether what waits inside those edges wants to be understood, that is the question Season 7 has not yet answered. And the silence around that question is, by far, the most interesting thing about this investigation.